But now joining us, our next guests are here to tell us about the Liu Institute for Asia and Asian Studies. Justin Liu is a 2000 alum and president and CEO of Tireco, Inc., and he is also the inaugural chair of the Keough School of Global Affairs Advisory Council and the president of the R.M. Liu Foundation, his family's philanthropic organization that established the Liu Institute. With him is Liu Institute director and professor of Chinese literature, Michelle Hawks. Now, Justin, Michelle, thank you and welcome to Notre Dame Day. Justin, there is just such a lot of familiar, heroic, and historic names here on campus. And to name some of them, the Hesburgh Library, Corby Hall, Washington Hall, named after George Washington. But a relatively new addition to that list is the institute named after your paternal grandfather, General Liu Fangwu, and legendary leader in the Chinese army during World War II. Tell us a little bit about your grandfather and his service.
Well, Allison, thank you for having us today. My grandfather was a general in the Chinese military. During World War II, he was part of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Asia. At the time in Burma, the British 133rd Division was surrounded by 13,000 enemy troops. My grandfather, with his regiment of 800 soldiers, went and rescued these British soldiers, 7,500 soldiers from Japanese captivity. The significance of the battle is really twofold. At the time, the Asia campaign for the Allies wasn't going very well. The enemy was continuing to advance forward, pretty much untethered, and Pearl Harbor had pretty much just been bombed 4 months earlier. So my grandfather's victory was not only just a strategic and tactical one, but I think an emotional one as well. Secondly was that, China as a whole historically had been subject to a lot of foreign occupation. My grandfather's victory was actually the first by the Chinese army on foreign soil since the Opium War.
That is incredible. And we just saw a photograph while you were speaking of your grandfather pictured with Margaret Thatcher, and he was commended by her. Tell us about that.
So thank you for bringing that up. So on the 50-year anniversary of the battle, Margaret Thatcher came to the U.S. and asked to meet my grandfather. My grandfather at the time was 93 years old. And she just really wanted to thank him for his contributions to British history. And through the conversation, probably what stood out the most was that at one point she said, General Liu, thank you for all your contributions to British history. If you think about the 7,500 people you saved and how many lives that's translated to now 2 or 3 generations later, there are hundreds of thousands of people that just wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for your heroics. And so that really tugged at my grandfather's heart, and it's one that is probably one of the proudest moments that he's ever had.
I can hear that in your voice, the emotion and what that must mean to you. How special is it for you to be able to honor him in this way?
Absolutely. It's extremely special. And, with the creation of the Institute, the idea behind it was we wanted to find a way to honor my grandfather's legacy. And, my grandfather was actually a man of faith. And when we looked at how we could preserve his legacy, he was not only just a man of faith, but he was really rooted in a high level of moral and ethical standards and high level of integrity. And so when you're looking at how to preserve a family name and someone's legacy in that way, you really want to find an institution that, number one, is going to endure and whose legacy can help sustain far beyond our lifetime. And the second one is you really want an institution that can also embody what the name means. And so Notre Dame has been a great partner for us, and really we are really blessed to be part of the university. I think my grandfather did not go to Notre Dame, but he served his country because he was a patriot. He loved his country, and I think starting with him and the fact that his grandkids went to Notre Dame, I think our entire family's arc really defines the university creed of God, country, and Notre Dame.
Absolutely. And Michelle, we have you here with us, and thank you so much for being with us as well. How would you say that the Institute really embodies that of the Liu family legacy?
Well, thank you so much for having us, and it's wonderful to be here with Justin. I mean, I think we embody the legacy in all kinds of ways, but first and foremost, as you've heard, the story of General Liu is a global story. It ties together different parts of Asia with Britain, with the United States, and the Liu Institute embodies that element by being part of the School of Global Affairs. So we're very different from Asia institutes at other universities. They were usually founded during the Cold War. They're very adversarial. They don't look at Asia as part of a global reality, we do. I mean, this is how we embody the legacy. We're also probably, if I'm not mistaken, the first Asia Institute to be actually named after an Asian family. I mean, usually that did never happened in the past. And we are also one of the very few places where the Asian American experience is also made part of Asian studies. And in that respect, we continue the legacy of Justin himself, who was a very prominent member of the Asian American Association here on campus, also was a student member of the committee that promoted more diversity on campus. So, you know, we're very proud of continuing the legacy of several generations of the Liu family through the Liu Institute.
Well, wonderful. And just, quickly, why do you feel it is important for Notre Dame to have a strong relationship with and an understanding of Asia and Asian culture?
So this is the moment where I always quote Father Hesburgh. So Father Hesburgh first went to China in 1979, and he wrote in his diary, "This country is very different from our country, but anything that pertains to 1/4 of humanity must be important." So that was just China in 1979. Nowadays, 60% of the human population lives in Asia. If Notre Dame students and faculty do not engage with Asia, that means they're not engaging with the majority of mankind. That cannot be right.
I think that puts it into perfect perspective. Thank you both so much for joining us and for sharing your grandfather's story.